Through the valley I may walk, but you were all I'll ever need. Gave your life to take my fall, so in the storm I will have peace. So come the storm, I'll still believe.
Welcome back to the Say Network podcast. We missed you guys. We're not only back with a new season, we're back with new guests, the new topics, but we're also bringing back the same old feelings like we had before. So stick around because you're not going to want to miss it. And with that being said, I'm Abraham Guevara, and I'm the pleasure to be your host for this episode. But I also want to welcome back our other host, Megan Villalpando.
Hey, guys.
And the amazingly amazing Jib Sparks.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. So appropriate.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we're glad to be back. And we got some cool things lined up in this episode. We're going to talk about a few things that I'm sure is on everybody's mind. But before we go down that road, I want to toss it to Megan for a youth culture piece. And Megan, what do you got for us? What insights do you have for us today?
That's a lot of pressure. Insights. So this is probably extends beyond youth culture, I suppose. This is kind of everyone culture right now. But I read this thing recently, and it talked about how the use of streaming services, and this will come at no surprise, has basically doubled and is at an all-time high right now during the pandemic. And when I say streaming services, I'm talking about Hulu, I'm talking about Netflix, Amazon Prime, all the streaming services. And basically, this thing I was reading, it said consumers went from watching or consuming 1 to 2 hours a day, which I feel like is a low number. I feel like it was probably higher to begin with.
I was say, what demographic is that?
This is just an average, okay?
Right.
And
they're including newborn infants in that?
Theirs might be higher. So they went from, the average is that people are streaming 1 to 2 hours a day, now up to 3 to 4 hours per day. And again, that probably varies from person to person, age to age, or whatever. So I definitely have watched more streaming stuff since the pandemic started. So I have two questions for you guys. I'm curious, one, have you been watching more yourself? And two, have you uncovered any sort of hidden gem, like that one show that is just like the best thing you've watched in this entire pandemic so far?
The answer for me is no, I have not watched more TV. For some reason, over the last several years, and I could probably sit here and make up a case of that we've done it on purpose to better our lifestyles. But that's not really true. My wife and I just kind of stopped watching TV altogether. We have it. And if there's a Dodger game on, we'll watch the game, but not really watching it. It's just kind of on. So I don't watch a lot of things. I will say, though, I have dabbled into streaming TV because I'd never really watched any of that before. I've never subscribed to Netflix. I have nothing against them. Part of it is laziness. The other thing is I don't really like watching things on my computer, and I don't want to buy a device to connect it to my TV. And I think my TV might be smart, but I'm not totally sure because sometimes it ignores my demands. But I got excited because Project Runway was on Amazon Prime. It's not Project Runway anymore. It's the new Heidi Klum, Tim offshoot. I forgot what it's even called, but it was nice to see them back in the saddle again and getting designers to design dresses. And it's a favorite show of mine.
Wait, so it's the same people? They just went off and did their own new show?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's a little different. There's some differences, but the heart and the soul of Project Runway is still there.
The spirit is still there.
The spirit is still there, and I have been a faithful watcher of that program since its inception. There's something about TV shows where people can create things that I am incredibly drawn to. It doesn't matter what it is. I could have zero. I'm not interested in making a dress, but I'm fascinated by how they make dresses. pretty cool. I'm not interested in giant knives or swords, but yet I'll watch that Forged in Fire every once in a while. Just because I think it's fascinating that they could take something out of nothing and make something. So it's kind of cool. But no extra TV. In fact, my kids have had no extra TV as well.
It's kind of been weird. I think it's gone in stages. I think at the beginning it went up a bit. Gaming has gone up, but I think it was at the beginning of quarantine and lockdown. Then it hit like a equilibrium where it kind of balanced out with going outside. Because I think the going outside part I wasn't really much outdoorsy person, and all of a sudden I find myself doing that more. So that helped kind of balance out my TV consumption a little bit. But there's a couple of shows. Oh, I got into Community, which is like I already showed that passed like a while back with Joel McHale, right? Is that his name?
Funny.
Yeah, I got into that show, and I started binging that one because I was like, you know what? Now's the time to get into that show. I'm never gonna have another chance in my life. And whenever my friend mentions it, I want to be able to catch all the references, so I'm gonna do my homework. It's a great show. I like it. Yeah, that one has increased, but no, I think what went up, what skyrocketed was the gaming, because I found I had time to do that a little bit more, and so I was going to take every chance I could to get that done. I had a long list of games I just hadn't played, so I was like, time to get those taken care of now.
What is a game that's your go-to game?
Right now, it's a free game. It's called Apex Legend, and it's a multiplayer battle royale style game where you are randomly placed with three people, and you're all working together to finish the game together, and you compete against other teams of three, and you guys are just in this big ring, and it has kind of that closing ring style a la Fortnite, where it just closes in, and everybody gets closer together. And so it's a really fun game. It's very intense. And yeah, that's a go-to game whenever I have downtime. And it's a lot of fun. And I recommend it.
Jim and I don't do gaming. So we're just like, see, you're shaking our heads.
No,
I don't know what you mean.
I will say that my kids have played they were able to, particularly during the summer. Now the school starts, all back to the old rules, but they had played more games, and they got this some Star Wars-y type game on the PlayStation, and I tried to play it with them. I'm outmatched. My capacity to be able to process all the action on the screen is not near enough to be able to keep up on that stuff. It's just too much to me. So I'm happy with FIFA. I'll play the sports games because at the very least I know the sports, so I know where the things should go. But
yeah.
No, those first-person shooter type games. Yeah.
I would argue that those FIFA games are pretty complex as well. But I think that having the prior knowledge of soccer does help to get the game. But yeah, it is a little bit of a learning curve for some folks with the first-person shooter, because you got the guy like with the little gun, and you got to like look this way, but another stick moves you forward and backwards, and it's a little bit of a mess for some folks.
I'm just saying that I didn't have to reload my gun in Contra in Nintendo. So like having to reload guns and do all that stuff, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, they make you. Yeah, and there are some games that I kind of make the joke that there's some games that they want to make them very realistic, but then they get a little bit too realistic to where like you're managing like your finances in the game, and you're doing budget for your game character, and you're planning out their their food schedule. You're doing all these crazy things for your character in the game, and things that you would never do in real life, you're doing them for a character in the game. Like there's a game I recently played where you go fishing. And I don't like fishing, but I find myself spending hours fishing in this game, and I don't know what's going on. It's very weird. So
you're saying that you take care of a fictional gaming character far better than you take care of yourself.
I have much better self-care and self-love for my gaming character than for my own self.
Megan, what about you?
Well, since we're talking about games, I'm a person that I find one game and I just go in on that game. And so my game for the past several months has been Mario Kart, the free version on the app. So I've just been killing it at that. I have over like 30 drivers, 30 carts.
Oh,
To me, that's really good, right? I'm committed. So that's a lot of fun. It's a fun game. And now they have multiplayer, so you can play with other people. In terms of shows, this is so people either love this docu-series or they hate it. I really, really love The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. I talked about it with a lot of different people, but I really enjoyed it. Half of the reason why I enjoyed it is because I grew up watching basketball in the 90s, so there's a lot of nostalgia there, getting to see all the players, that like legends from the 90s, and seeing the film and footage from them in those games. And I just really enjoyed that one. That was my hidden gem, one of my favorite things I watched during quarantine.
it's very strong. Very well done.
Yeah.
Good formula that they used to it. I get a little tired. The 6, I don't know, like 4, 5, and 6, I was like, all right, I got to work on it a little bit because it jumps back and forth quite a bit. But it was really fascinating. And I love the fact that Jordan greenlit that right after LeBron won the championships.
Yeah. And apparently they're going to come out with a Kobe version, right?
They
Soon,
they did follow Kobe in
Yeah.
his final year. So
Yeah.
that will be interesting if that ever gets released. I'm sure
Yeah.
it will.
Yeah, I saw that thing blow up on social media. Like, I think within a month of lockdown, everybody was sharing everything from that. And I never got around to watching it. But that's the only
It's worth it.
basketball I really know. Like, I don't know basketball after the year 2000 or after the year like 1997, 98. But yeah, I remember Jordan. I remember Scottie Pippen and all those guys.
When you guys see me with a camera crew around me at work, you'll know that I'm in my final year.
They're documenting every moment,
I don't
every
need
last
to say,
moment.
I don't need to say anything. You guys will just know when that boom mic
Just know.
comes walking in before I come walking in. You know that it's going down in a few years.
Sweet. I mean, I'd like to. I'm just already picturing myself sitting in the interview talking about you.
Oh, you better document those stories because I'm burning everything.
All right, Abe, what are we talking about in today's episode?
Yes, Megan. Thank you. Lockdown. I don't know if I should call it lockdown. I feel like that word's strong.
Shelter
Quarantine.
at home.
Shelter at home. Lockdown's like a year in prison. I don't know. Maybe I'll just say the shelter at home order went into effect a few months ago, and it's been up and down, up and down. And I mean, everyone listening to this, we all got different feelings about it, and it's been a crazy, crazy time. Unprecedented, something we've never experienced before, something we will tell our grandkids about. And as all this was happening, the thoughts, all the feelings, everything kind of came at the same time. And we all know kind of how we feel in a way. We all know that there are definitely negative feelings about everything. But for this episode, I don't want to focus on the negative. I want to talk a little bit about the positive. And I want to focus a little bit on some of the positive lessons and things that were kind of unexpected, the good things that are unexpected. I think, being a believer and being a Christian, I know God is always doing something. And when we read scripture and we read the Bible, we always see that in the middle of the chaos, that's when God is, bringing order and doing something miraculous and great. And I want to talk about that because I know that God has done great things in spite of the circumstances. And I kind of want to focus on that. And I think that's a good way to start off this season, to kind of, turn it back to God, which is what all this is about. And I want to just kind of start off with this scripture that I love. And it's in Philippians chapter 4, verse 11 through 13. We see this one all the time, but I want to read it in context because I think it's perfect. And it's Paul speaking, and he says, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. And we know that last part very well whenever we hear it. We see it on the shoes, we see it on shirts, in gyms, and whenever somebody's about to deadlift their max, they quote that verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Sorry,
But
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. A gymnasium deadlift? What?
it's when they pick up a dead body in the gym. It's crazy, yeah.
That makes more
No,
sense.
but yeah, like we hear this verse spoken all the time in sports and athletics, but the context of the verse is very fascinating, and I think it's very fitting for our situation because Paul talks about whatever the circumstances, he's learned to be content. He's learned to find the blessings of God in every circumstance that he's gone through, and he says whether well fed or hungry, whatever, he's always found a way to thank God and be content. And he follows it up with, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I can do all this. And I will say that a lot of these positive things have definitely come from the strength of God. So my question to you is, and to maybe even if you're listening to this, something to think about, what are some of the things God has revealed to you about your character during these challenging times? And what positive growth have you seen from it, just on a personal basis?
There's weirdly enough, there's been many parts that I've enjoyed. I've not enjoyed all the negative stuff, and it's awful that people have lost their lives and continuing to lose their lives. But being able to slow life down a little bit has been a real help in many different areas in my life. I spend a lot more time with my kids, which is cool, and but I've spent a lot more like alone time with Stephanie. We walk a lot. We do several miles of just being able to walk. My kids are old enough now to kind of play by themselves and hang out and shoot some hoops while we're walking and stuff. So, and I wouldn't have that time with our regular schedules with sports and all that stuff. And so it's like I've been given a little bit of extra time. And I think probably looking back, I could say it's probably a key part of my life. My kids are at a still of age of heavy influence from their parents, and that's dying out quickly. I recognize that. They start leaning on their friends and stuff like that. But it's just been, I don't know, there's been some evenings that I've just really enjoyed being able to walk the neighborhood, been able to meet new neighbors and have developed relationships with neighbors that are also out walking and we see on the same trails and paths. And that's been very, very cool. I really, really enjoyed that. And, part of it is nostalgia. I did a lot of that growing up. I was a neighborhood kid and we were always in the neighborhood riding bikes and stuff. And, in this day and age, you have to arrange for play dates and work on schedules to enable the kids to be able to get on their bicycles safely and to be able to go into a controlled track in which they could do all that stuff. There's been an element of freedom, particularly for my kids. I mean, they get to, they ride the neighborhood by themselves and they love it. It's cool and it's fun. And so there's kind of a new sense of freedom there as well. And that's been very enjoyable. I really enjoyed all that part, and seeing the confidence in them being able to do that kind of stuff is really cool. I think I could look back and say we were overdoing it, thinking a little over too much. It's kind of crazy, but that's just kind of the initial reaction to a lot of it. I'm a homebody by nature. I like being at home. I like staying at home. I don't need to go anywhere. I'm happy being at home. It's fun for me. It's relaxing to me. So being forced to do that is welcome.
I think for me, there's been kind of two things. One, this sounds ridiculous, but I learned that you cannot survive without this toilet paper. I thought people were crazy, going out and buying up all the toilet paper. I didn't understand it. And then after like 2 months, I'm like, yeah, we go through a lot of toilet paper. So it's like lesson number one, always be stocked on the toilet paper. That's my first lesson. But beyond that, I think for me, this whole time has just been a really big, I don't know. There's been a lot of challenges and stuff, but one thing I've learned about myself, for better for worse, and I kind of knew this, but this was really highlighted extra, is that I like control. I'm the type 1 on the Enneagram, and I like when things are chaotic, and I can have a part in making them, put them in order. And I don't know, I've been independent for a long time. And so I like to have kind of like control over things, my circumstances, my life. And unfortunately, I put a lot of security into that as well. And, this whole time, I was furloughed for 3 months, and I was reassigned into another department. And that time was such a blessing. It was really cool to be a part of that. But during that, I felt like my whole life just kind of got uprooted and shaken up and kind of turned upside down. I feel like I was like living in the upside down of Stranger Things or something, but I just felt like everything was just kind of crazy. And I can think back to other points in my life where I felt that way. And service corps being one of them, when I was going through just like really major challenges. But it is in those moments where I think I grow the most, when I finally take the time and I just surrender to the Lord. I'm just like, you know what? I have to trust in God just to get me through each and every day. And so in those really low points, I found myself just, like I say, surrendering each day. And through that, I really feel like I started to develop just a heart of gratefulness during this time. I started to really take notice of just those small little blessings, and eventually even some bigger things that God was doing and working in my life. And as difficult as things were, I just really felt like that trust in God, that faith in God, and just that gratefulness just has really, like, God has really stirred my heart in that. And Abraham, you quoted a verse from, I think it was Philippians in there, a verse, kind of similar verse that I've just kind of been meditating on through these last few months. This is my paraphrase of it, so it's not exact. I probably should have looked it up. But I think of the book of Job, and I can't compare my life to all the crazy things that happened to Job. Job had a lot of really crazy things happen, but there's a point in there where Job talks about how, before he had heard that God was good. He had heard from other people that God was good. But after he went through all this hardship and all this heartache and all these challenging times in his life, he says that now I know for myself that God is good. And so, I think for me, it's just really, I've been focused on just the goodness of God through this, and trying to continually have a heart of gratefulness. And God's just been really good to me during this, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with like the testing of your character. Like there are those, where you sit sort of in your character analysis, and then a lot of the things start happening that grate against those things, and those specific things about you. And I feel like that it's happened a couple of times. Like, I'm a pretty positive person. I'm pretty positive. And then when that first day happened, when all the toilet paper was gone, and I went to like Sam's, and people were like panic buying everything, and everybody has a different story about it. But all of a sudden, me being like my positivity, where the way I thought I always was kind of being challenged a little bit. And my like carefreeness of like feeling like everything's good, like always going to be fine, because I live in America. I live in a country that's like, modern and has everything. All of a sudden, that's like now kind of being challenged a little bit, and there's little doubts here and there that are creeping in. And I felt those moments where like it was the voice of God or something just kind of speaking in like to me and just saying, "Hey, do you really like where's your trust at? How do you where is your trust?" And it's those moments when you are finally told to step out on the water, or still told to kind of like go, like thrown into something you really didn't expect or anticipate, where your trust is tested. And it really helped me kind of like gauge it. And I saw that very much as a positive, because it wasn't like the worst thing. It wasn't the worst situation for some, but I felt like it was like to see where kind of my faith was, to gauge my faith a little bit. And it was really good. It helped me kind of draw closer to God. And then also with Jim, what you were saying, I'm also right. You were almost speaking exactly what's kind of in my story is like, I see the neighborhood now, I've met my neighbors. We met some neighbors that had just given their life to Christ. And they're like, they don't really have anybody nearby. And so we're kind of building a relationship with our neighbors. And that's not how big city life tends to be. Everybody kind of checks in and checks out, goes to work, and then runs into their homes and closes the garage. And I'm just thinking right now, I remember, I think it was Hudson was telling us about that. He was talking about like that was sort of his, Colonel Hudson was saying that like
boot camp.
Right. And he would just kind of like run in and close the garage and not engage. And he started feeling like God was making him go out there and actually talk to his neighbors. And I remember people like that. I'm like, that's just because you're like super extrovert. I'm pretty extrovert. You're like super extrovert. You're at another level. But I was forced to do it in this situation. I was forced to get to know people because we're social in my church. We're not meeting at church.
Right.
And so now I'm forced to kind of be the church in my neighborhood now and meet my neighbors and get to know them and reach out to them. And I learned to bake, so I'm going to start baking them some goods, so.
Which you've got some great recipes, by the way. You should post
them
in the show notes. I've tried your chocolate cake recipe, and we already know about the Joanna Gaines chocolate chip cookie recipe.
Can I just quickly highlight how we are shattering norms in this podcast? Megan speaking on women playing video games. I'm engaged in dressmaking shows, and Abraham is baking for his neighbors.
I love it. It's awesome. It's awesome, man.
Down with the stereotypes.
So yeah, like I'm those ideas, like we were saying, Jim, about like you're kind of going out there and seeing the neighborhood. I got into a couple books, I went through a few books during this whole thing. And yeah, just kind of learning things about my character. I've learned that I needed, like, there's one book I read, which is really great. It's about habits. I'll link it in the show notes, but it's about, building good habits. I got into that book and started realizing, man, I need to like develop better habits. I need to automate more things in my life. And so I got into it. And so one of those habits was getting into the regular habit of after dinner, we go out, me and my kids, we go out in the neighborhood, we ride bikes, or we go do something. Like that's something we've done now consistently. And so, yeah, it's been a definite positive, and I thank God for those things.
That's an interesting point because you're right. It's given opportunity to build habits because there's nothing else, right? And so you do that. And what I like about it is, that it's going to be hard to break that, hopefully, when life starts to come back to normal. Like you're like, oh, I miss doing that. Like I miss doing the projects in the garage, and at night, instead of watching TV, going in there and working on little things. So that hopefully will become nature for you.
Yeah, I hope things don't just like go back to normal super quickly. I hope we do hold on to some of those those practices and those things that we've been doing.
Yeah, what I find interesting is just walking the neighborhood of how many. So this has been a practice that my wife and I have done since before we had kids. We walk after dinner. At minimum, it's a mile, and sometimes we could get up to 3 or 4 miles. But we did it with all of our kids, and I was reminded again. I have 2 different stories of how neighbors do want to have interaction and do care about you, and it really is an easy way to get to know people. Like as a church, we're always like, "Oh, it's hard to invite people." It's not that hard, actually. You just gotta have a relationship with people and stuff. And so when Stephanie was pregnant for the first one, we would be walking the neighborhood over and over again. And then she had the baby, and then when she was able, we started walking again. So this time we had a stroller with us. And so we were pushing it, and this set of neighbors that is 2 streets away from us. It's not like we knew them at all. Never had seen them. In fact, this guy is a Hall of Fame football player. I recognized him right away. And but they came out and they're like, "Excuse me, I know this is going to sound really weird, but can we see the baby?" And we're like, giving them like a weird look. We're like, "Huh?" They're like, "I'm sorry. So our dining room table is that window right there, and you guys walk every day while we're eating dinner." And so we've watched this story unfold of this baby coming, and we feel like we're kind of part of the family and stuff. And it was really cute and it was fun. And we talked to them a long time. And then we got to talking to them like when we would pass by over and over again. And then, and kind of a related story, my wife is not pregnant, but just walking through, I always felt in this one particular section of our neighborhood that someone was watching me, but I can never figure it out. You know, it's like you get that weird sense and so I look over, and sure enough, it's this guy. He's sitting in the corner of like his patio, and it's this old guy. He's old. I don't know how old he is. Very old, but he waved. It was just a simple wave, and I waved back, stuff like that. So then the next time I'm walking up the street, and I could see him well in advance this time because I was like, "Oh, is he there? Is that a thing that he does or whatever?" And sure enough, he was there, and he was like waiting for another person to come by and saw. And so it's like these repetitive patterns of people that are actually watching you because you watch others, like you're stalking other people as well. But what I've realized it's that we're longing for that relationship. And so just taking that step forward of instead of just walking by and waving, of doing what those people did is step out and to say, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, and getting to know them. It's been really interesting to experience that, and it just makes your neighborhood cooler. You know, it's like, and I live in a cool neighborhood. It could be terrible, but when you're building relationships, your neighborhood becomes instantly cooler.
Yeah, that sense of community is, I feel, is growing. I don't think like I feel like the story is kind of common. You know, I feel like this is happening more. Um, and yeah, that's awesome, man. We shared a little bit of stories, but is there any stories that maybe during this, specifically during this time, that you want to share, that you might have felt that that was a moment where you noticed that there was something up, or you noticed that something had changed in you?
I, I think for me, I've my empathy capacity has grown quite a bit, and all of this. It's been emotionally uncomfortable for multiples of issues. It could be COVID, it could be work things, but also all of the protesting and then the Black Lives Matter movement, and there's just so many things like even trivial things like sports being delayed, like normal things have made it uncomfortable. And I think through that, it's for me at least, it feels like it's built more capacity for empathy, which I'm not traditionally known for at all, for any sort of reason or way. But I think part of that is that we've been, because there's more time with the kids at home, I've talked about all this stuff with them. And we've been very upfront about everything and not hiding away from current events and talking about that. And as you're talking about it with your kids, you're not in a place of argument with them. And we certainly are not people that share very specific our opinion like on matters with our kids. We want our kids to kind of sort some things out themselves. But to be able to talk about some of these more difficult things that I would be able to shy away from traditionally because we're busy. We've got other things that I could just be like, we'll talk about it after baseball. And then knowing that after baseball, I'm going to tell them what they did wrong for the last hour and a half. And but it's been, and the more I've been able to talk about it with my kids, and we talk about the, very difficult topics and saying like, what do we want to get? Like, how can we be better? How can we be better humans out of this? It's increasing more capacity to care for others. And I think that, like, to me, is an outcome that was unexpected, that it's really changing me personally on a lot of matters. I sent a text to my friends because I heard a song on the radio that stirred me, if you will. And I'm like, I don't know what this feeling is because I've never really been sitting in my car going, oh, wow, that was powerful. Like in music, it's like music's just background stuff for me. I've never been really into music. And so I don't know, part of me feels like the Grinch is like my heart is becoming warmer, but uh, it sounds stupid maybe, but like this time has allowed that to grow and to understand and to care for others and to hear other people's stories of their struggle and even if I don't understand, I could just by simply listening and caring more, I've been able to be more aware of other people's needs, and I think that's been very, very helpful for me. I still have an incredibly long way to go because I'm still not very empathetic on a lot of things, but it's this time has been a growth time in that area for me, just by being hit by so many, and we could be hit by all this stuff and turn angry real quick, and but anger has led me nowhere positive successfully. That strategy has not been very good for me, and so it's just easier to take a breath and say, why is this happening? Why do they feel that way? Why are we buying into weird conspiracy theories? Like even that kind of stuff. I used to write them off as psycho crazies, but like, why did they think in that way, and what has led them to think that way? I don't know. It's just been it's been hard. It's been uncomfortable, but it's been good.
I think for me, kind of the same. I just had a moment. I really don't like going to Costco. I know it sounds ridiculous. I always make Paco go to Costco because I don't like it. It's just so hectic and crazy. I get really irritable. I just don't like people up in my space and stuff. And so I had a moment at Costco, and I don't know, like I just noticed somebody was like older behind me and they were kind of struggling to walk. And I just felt like I need to let them go in front of me. And I just noticed like my capacity just to slow down and actually pay attention to what's going on around me, not be so irritable all the time. I just kind of felt like it hit me. I was like, wow, this slowing down of the pace, it makes me a lot more patient, kind of kind person. I'm not walking around in a state of irritation while I'm in Costco. So I don't know, for me, I just kind of had that moment. It didn't really, I didn't notice it until it happened, kind of a thing, but I feel like I'm starting to be a little more patient and empathetic as well, and just noticing what's going on with the people around me. Maybe it could be just I'm less stressed. I'm not sure.
So yeah, with all that being said, what are you doing, I guess, personally to build upon the growth you've experienced? Jim, you mentioned sort of like, man, I really hope these things don't change. But I'm wondering, like, what can we do, or what are we doing, maybe to keep these things alive, to keep these new things going after things kind of resume. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think we have to prepare that this is going to be over, and prepare that a new normal will come, and prepare that we want to be able to do it this way, and building not just the habits of like what we've been able to do during shelter at home, but like make those habits a little bit wider. One thing I've been trying to do is when I drive, I rarely drive because I've been working mostly at home. But when I drive, I call people. I instead of just listening to the radio, what I would normally do, or a podcast, I call people to check in on them to see how they're doing, and different people from all different parts of my life, and so because I realized that for me, that being able to walk the neighborhood, I don't know, 8 to 10 times a day that I would normally do, is not going to happen. And so how can I keep relationships going and keep them going and making them a little bit more meaningful? And so looking at opportunities to keep doing that and try to be good at it. I've got a couple friends that keep in touch with me, even though I'm really bad at keeping in touch with them, and I feel guilty all the time. And I'm like, it's just a discipline. Like, just work at it. And so just trying to put in and recognizing that things are going to change, and I don't want to change. these particular areas of my life. I want to be better at them. Working at it now, so when it becomes difficult, it's not that difficult to do, and it becomes like wired. And just like I said, anytime now I get in the car, it's weird when one of my kids are jumping in the car because I'm so wired to call someone. As soon as I get in my car, it's like Pavlov. I'm in my car, I got to call somebody, and a lot of times I'll just scroll through my phone and just tell Siri to call someone random, and well, not random, but I give a name. But when they're in the car, I'm like, oh wait, I got to talk to them. Like I can't just do that. So like I'm feeling myself already getting into that habit, and it's been very good. It's been very healthy, and I've had some pretty good discussions where I've ended up just sitting in the driveway looking like a psycho, talking to myself. And my neighbor's like, dude, that guy is crazy. Like, he's psycho. But I'm okay with that because I've been able to kind of have those talks that may have been missed out by not going to a camp or not going to certain things that we would have normally done, or go to church, for instance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I would say, is that we have to know that that's coming, and we want to be good at it before it happens.
I think also just being observant. I mentioned before, I've just been trying to really pay attention to just the things that I have to be grateful for. It's easy to identify the frustrations and the challenges that have come with all this, the things that don't feel normal, but just identifying what I am grateful for and what the good, and it can be as simple as maybe writing some stuff down or just trying to be a little more observant. It's so easy to let those things pass and go unnoticed. Simple things, somebody smiling at you, although with a mask on, it's a little hard to tell when they're smiling these days.
I've never looked more handsome than during these mask days.
Which, side note, as much as I don't enjoy wearing that mask, it is kind of nice wearing that mask because you can't fully show expressions when you are frustrated. It's harder to tell.
It's true.
Sidebar. Grateful for the mask. But I would just say, just try to be a little more observant of those small little things, people showing kindness, looking for opportunities to show kindness to others. Keeping track of those things that like God's doing that a lot of times I'm just too busy to notice and pay attention to, and just give thanks for those things. I think for me, it's being more observant and intentional in that.
Yeah, I think that, Jim, when you're saying about like habits and all that stuff, I think habits has been a big thing, maybe the theme of this for me. And the habit of I feel like if I can automate it, keep it habitual, it becomes, like you're saying, Pavlov's dog kind of thing, where you have a desire to do it, because you kind of trained yourself to do it. And I think that's kind of what I feel like I'm trying to develop to keep these positive things going. Because it's only when I'm out there in the neighborhood that I'm going to meet my neighbors, It's only when I'm like, being like being present around there to where these moments happen. Somebody said, I heard a really good saying that people will say, I got to spend quality time with my kids, but he's like, it's not quality time. It's not like you're going to like hit the jackpot, with your kids. It's quantity. It's doing it a lot till you get those moments, Yeah. And I definitely feel like it's that not only with my kids, but just in my relationships in general is cultivating them habitually. And then those moments happen, those moments with getting to know people and getting to hear their story. I think that's when it actually occurs. So yeah, it's good to hear, man. That's really good. Well, thank you guys for sharing. And, I know many of you listening have your own stories, and we would like to hear your stories too. We'd like to hear what you guys feel and what you guys, some of the stuff we've been talking about, some of the positive experiences during all this that maybe you'd like to share, and we'd like to hear what you'd like to say. So hit us up on our Facebook, on our Say Network page. That'd be great. Megan, where else can they hit us up on?
Yeah, so we're also on Instagram. Just look for Say Network. And then we also have a Gmail account. If you are feeling inclined to email us, you can email us at sayconnect@gmail.com.
MySpace, Zynga,
Ooh.
those are still available.
Those are still available. We're not sure if we check them. Are they still available?
I don't think Zynga is. MySpace did come back at some point. I'm not sure if they're gone again.
Yeah. Justin Timberlake, I think, tried. But anyways, yeah, hit us up. We'd love to hear your stories. Because these things are incredible and they're valuable, and we'd love to hear it and like to tell other people about the things that you've experienced. So yeah, let us know, and we are looking forward to more episodes of the Say Network podcast, and we can't wait to see you come back and or hear you or you hear us. I don't know, whatever. We love to be with you guys again. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys next time.
And when it seems I'm at the end, and I don't know what I believe, through the cloud I see your hand, reaching down to guide me. You're always reaching down to guide me, 'cause I am yours and I am free.